I just want you to like heal. Hi, my name is Tash, and I am very unprepared for this talk, except I'm also equally very prepared for this talk. I made myself a bubble tea. But unprepared, I mean, I'm still in my pajamas. I did put a bra on, though you can't see it, so I shouldn't have even worried. I didn't put a face on. Didn't do my hair. It's greasy as all shit. But we're going to talk about writing today. About what I'm working on, the stories that I talked about with you guys last. Yeah, we're just going to do like a little recap where I think I'm going to be going, what I'm doing. Just like a little life update. I'm also going to write a blog about it, so whatever I might miss here will definitely be in that blog. So, let's get to it. Hopefully I don't blabber on for too much. Currently, I am working on a vampire story because I genuinely miss, you know, the old time vampire stories. Like, Twilight's a bit misogynistic now. But, like, back in the day, that was my roots. That's where, I started reading. That's where I, found the passion for reading, was in Twilight. And the Vampire Academy. And Marked, though Marked is trash now. Vampire Academy is still... And Twilight, I love, but in a whole different way. I love it because it gave me the passion for reading. I love it for that. I don't necessarily love Edward and Jacob and Bella and that whole story, though Eclipse has always been the best book to me. Though Breaking Dawn Part 2 is the best movie. I love how they did the end of that movie. Not what we're here talking about, but that's my 2 cents on that. So I'm writing this whole vampire story. As always, I'm not going to say that much, but it follows an 18-year-old. I don't know whether I'm going to go young adult with it yet, or whether I'm going to get a little spicy with it. I don't know yet. We'll see where the vibes go and how I'm feeling when I'm writing it. But that's what I'm writing currently. Because that's what I feel. That's what I want to read. And I don't want to try and dig up a vampire book. Though I have one on my shelf. I got this back in the day when I was loving vampires and things. And it's a vampire story, and I haven't read it, and I have the whole trilogy. And somehow it's already damaged. But maybe I should just read this one. Maybe I should put this on my TBR, or my soon... my immediate TBR. Because the majority of these books are on my TBR. That's one thing that, I always see people and they're like, I have so many books on my TBR. I got 10 books. And I'm like, oh, that sounds real rough. Currently working on this. I'm doing some planning for it. I've never been a planner. I've always been more of a planter. So I'm actually planning the whole story for this one, which we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how it turns out, whether I get further than just the writing process, because that's how I'm going to segue into my other ones. So I've got 2 other stories going at the moment that I haven't touched in a while. I have Project Green, which I named on behalf of Kate Kavanagh, who names her books mostly after colours. Project Green is a Narnia-esque elf story, I guess. It's about a girl who's an elf that's going to a high school, hiding out in a high school in our world, and then bad shit happens and she has to go back to her own world. She ends up dragging some humans through with her, and this whole journey on saving people and, you know, sort of uncovering the truth to her best friends that she's had at this other school, and them learning the true her. That's what that one's about. I do love it dearly. I love the characters in that one. There's one character in particular that I have fallen in love with. I love him dearly. I will get back to it. I will, I promise. I need to write this vampire. I need to. Everything in my being wants me to write this vampire story. So I'm writing this vampire story so I can get back to that one. Another one that I'm writing is a road trip story. It's like a fantasy story, so it's set in its own world. It's not urban fantasy, it's fantasy. And she goes on this road trip. It's a world full of magic, so everyone has magic, but it's different levels of magic. it goes from rank A through to D, rank A being the absolute weakest, and rank D being the strongest, like, can, like, plow through a city sort of strong, like, but most people aren't rank D, most people are rank B. So you got rank A, which is, like, you can barely lift a spoon with your finger, sort of thing. Rank B is sort of like your average magic, like the general, like turning a light on and off from the other side of the room, like, just, like, basic stuff. Rank C is, like, amping it up a bit, like lifting a car. They don't have cars in that time, but lifting a car up, and, like, things that are a little bit heavier, things that, a little bit harder to, like, concocting things, and then you've got rank D, which is, like I said, it can plow through a city, like, no drama whatsoever, sneeze and you knock down a house, that sort of thing. Yeah, but they have, like, a bad government that likes to take control of the rank D mages. So that's those 3 stories. Very excited about all of them. I love them all dearly. Like, I will 100% get through them. The third one I was talking about, which I have a name for, but I'm not going to say. I'm going to call it Mim. Mim is probably the most completed out of a lot of them. I've actually completed writing it once before I realized what I wanted to do with it. Before, like, the whole plot changed. Like, the character dynamic, the plot, everything changed in that book. And so I sort of have to do a rewrite to adjust to it. So I ended up putting it down for a bit because that sounded exhausting. And I went back to Project Green for a bit, but because I had been away from Project Green for so long, I didn't really know the characters and everything that I had in mind before that well, so I didn't end up clicking with it that well, and then I got into this mood where I wanted to really write a vampire story. So here we are with 3 stories under my belt, trying to balance them out. I have completed a story before. I have not published it. I did try to get it published for a bit there, but I never really had high hopes for it getting published. It was a book that I wrote for me. It was a book that those characters were one of the first characters that I ever created. Those characters, I just needed them to have their own story. I needed them to be complete. And it's not a story I ever imagined to get out there. It follows 2 sisters that were living on the streets who eventually got taken into foster care. And it's like their journey to making friends and learning trust and all that. It was just a story I needed to write. I've never been in foster care, so, like, it was a story that probably I shouldn't ever publish. Like, it's not an own voices, and I feel like I probably don't have enough to say. I mean, I did get someone who has dealt with child safety and childcare and all that before to read over it, and she gave me some pointers and helped me out with it. But I still don't know if I have enough credentials to be able to write a story like that. Maybe years, decades down the track, when I feel like I have better connections and I have more people that can read it and tell me what's right and what's wrong with it and truly adjust it to where it's worth publishing. I wrote it because I needed those characters to have their story. I needed those characters to get out of my head and my heart and onto the page. And so I wrote that for me, and it hasn't gone anywhere. And it's the only contemporary story I've read, and so far these other 3 are all fantasy. Yeah. Though I am considering turning that whole contemporary story into a fantasy one. Because then it's sort of my rules, my way. And if I do get something a little wrong, it won't matter. Because it's a fantasy story. Before I go today, because I've already been talking for way too long, but before I go, I wanted to discuss what I plan to do. Yeah. So, over the next 8 months, my goal is to put my heart and soul into my writing. Absolutely every second of every day is going into my writing, whether it's like social media, to like push my social media to try and get me more exposure, whether it's writing or planning or reading, all of that. I'm just going to try my hardest to get a book out, try and get an agent, try and, live my dream, basically. But that's over 8 months. I have 8 months to do that, and if I don't feel like it's going successfully, then I have to go back to uni and I will study to become a librarian, because you need a degree in Australia to become a librarian. So that's my plan. So I have like an 8-month countdown to get my life together, basically. If I don't succeed in these next 8 months, it doesn't mean I'm going to suddenly stop writing and never get back to it again. If I don't succeed in these next 8 months, it just means I have to put my writing on the back burner for a little bit to study, so that when I become a librarian, I can then go back to writing and doing all this and trying again. But I'm trying to avoid studying again. I really didn't enjoy it the first time. Thank you so much for joining me today, for listening to me ramble and talk about writing. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Before I go, I'm going to quickly tell you what I'm reading at the moment. It is called Sweet Hand, and it's okay. I'm only like a few chapters in, but it follows, I don't really know what it's about. It just has a really pretty cover. That's why I bought it. Didn't really read the back of it. But that's what I'm currently reading. I just finished reading, I don't know what it's called. I'll put it up here as well. It was the third Jennifer L. Armentrout book from Blood and Ash. I thoroughly enjoyed it, though it felt like it went on forever. It's just a chunker of a book, that's all. But I really enjoyed that. Before that, I read Heartstopper, fantastic. The fourth one, I mean, it just came out. And before that, I read Nimona, also fantastic. But yeah, if you want to keep up to date with what I am reading and what I've finished and what I think of them, you can follow me on my Instagram. I always post things on there. It'll eventually pop up on my blog too, but that's a bit lazier. I'm a bit behind on posting reviews on there, and I only post one review a week, so it might be a bit down the track before it eventually pops up on the blog. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later. Bye!